Things like that.
Yeah, we're going to the alumni round.
Yeah.
I like start with the second.
Okay.
I don't wanna abandon this.
Oh, that was nice. Okay. No, okay.
You want me to give your class 5 minutes or?
Why don't you start so that, you know.
Okay. Oh, good evening. Tonight, we're going to talk about the intersection of education and development. You remember last week, we talked about everything about fair pay, that just because somebody gave you a price, it didn't mean it was fair, how we used the Fair Trade Federation to get started, the metrics we needed in order to know how to pay people and how much things cost. Then the relationship between how much things cost and the discipline of the market, what we could charge for them. And then whether or not fair pay represented a living wage. So today, I want to talk about education. Education has been fundamental for the Weaving Cooperative to be able to become an independent, self-managed, and hopefully sustainable business. And tonight I would talk about the how the education in Cajola in Guatemala is not good, and how Grupo Cajola has been working to offer some improvements in education, and then finishing up with how specifically educational issues have been very helpful in the Mayamam Weaving Cooperative. So Cajola is sadly about 50% illiterate. The illiteracy among women is closer to 75%. Probably about half of the parents of school-aged children have not been to school, so they don't speak Spanish. They don't really know what goes on in the school, and they obviously can't help their teacher, they can't help their teachers with, they can't help their children with homework. So when I first went in 2005, I happened to read the census that was put out that year. And in the town of Cajola, it's 18,000 people. 3 people had received a university degree. So you can see where we started. So fortunately, many of the families have the idea now that education is something that will help their children out of poverty. So they're very supportive of having their children attend the school system. Unfortunately, the public school system in Guatemala is atrocious. The teachers have maybe 40 children in a classroom. There's no books or materials. The classes are supposed to be bilingual, so in Cajola they should be in Mom and Spanish, but they're not. The government of Guatemala spends less of a percentage of their GDP on education than most other Latin American countries. And even that small budget towards the end of the year will get cut and the money allocated to other projects. So it's, I happen to believe that, I'm not alone, that it's a strategy by the oligarchy that they don't really want indigenous people to be educated because then they would become more threatening. It's traditionally been more difficult to get the girls into studying. That is changing a little bit, little by little. However, the female children still have responsibilities in the house for doing housekeeping activities or preparing meals. And so even the girls in school have a harder time getting their studies done because they're busy doing things that they have to do at home. And then on top of that, the girls are discouraged from doing any studying after grade school or after middle school because they're then pressured to settle down and get married. And even with encouragement from the families, in Kahula, the quality of education is very bad. And it actually is one of those things that motivates young people to cross the border and come north, is to try and get an education. So you already heard about that we started with an internet. And shortly after that, or the next year, we started a scholarship program. And that scholarship program, since 2006, we've awarded scholarships to 97 different young people. We've seen 24 college degrees come out of that. So that was a good increase to what we started with. And this year we have 16 young people studying in the college level. So during the course of time, we've graduated some lawyers, a pediatrician who has his own clinic, an anthropologist, and many teachers and linguists and teaching and administrators. And this year we have 2 people studying business and 1 person studying to be a civil engineer. So after a few years of working with the Weaving Cooperative, I became concerned that the children of the women were at work, the women brought them to work, and that they were hanging out without getting any development. And I suggested that we start a preschool. So Grupo Kahula put it aside for a while because they couldn't tackle it, but then they did tackle it. And in 2012, we opened a preschool based on the Reggio Emilia philosophy of education. The Reggio Emilia, I know Miracle knows about it, but the Reggio Emilia philosophy education is named after the city Reggio Emilia in Italy, because there is where this philosophy education was born. But it's an education based on the interests of the children, based on their culture and their language, which was one of the strong reasons we selected it. And it's based on the idea that everybody learns from each other. And instead of the banking model of teaching, where the teacher is taking the things out of his head or her head and giving it to the students, the idea is that the children learn from each other, that the children learn from the teachers learn from the children. Another important thing about this philosophy of education is that it believes that the involvement of the parents and the community is very important. And for us in Kahula, that's been a very important part of it, because the parents who come to a monthly meeting at the school, they're able to contribute their knowledge and time to the school. And at the same time, the teachers working with the parents have been able to have a really strong influence in family life. So overall, the school has had a stronger impact in the whole community. So our preschool is highly regarded by the public school teachers. We have a waiting list. And at first, the school was started just for the Weaving Cooperative, but it quickly opened up to the entire community. Our next project that we started was called Helping with Homework. We started to figure out that the grade school children coming to our internet center weren't able to read or do mathematics as they should have been. And so we started something that we began calling Helping with Homework, and the kids would come for an hour after school and help with homework. But then we could see that the homework was often just busy work, like go home and rate from 1 to 1,000,000. And so over time, we have changed the program. And now we have a very strong after school, grade school enrichment learning going on. So we have 10 teachers. The class size is less than 10 children per teacher. And although they do pay attention to the homework, the teachers have analyzed, given an evaluation of all their students, and they know what their weaknesses are and what needs to be worked on, and they construct their lesson plans like that. And then a really important thing has been the enrichment opportunities that they give the kids. So they are visited by a clown or a poet or a musician or a puppeteer. And so the kids have experiences outside normal public school activities, and that's definitely not offered in the public school. So you already heard about the women's literacy program that we had for teaching the women weavers how to read and write. When they all had achieved sixth grade level, the women decided what they would do now is only accept new people into the cooperative if they already had achieved sixth grade competency. So that program went away. And then to share with you, we have had a dream, but now that dream is starting to take reality because our education programs are so well thought of in the community and we have waiting lists for both of the programs. We are starting to build a school for 440 kids from preschool through middle school that will be based on the Reggio Emilia philosophy, of course. And it's really exciting for us. When it's fully operational, it will be providing employment also for about 40 teachers. And then I don't remember how many staff people, but there's a lot of staff people that are going to be involved. So education, it isn't just education, it has to be a quality education. So you already heard about how we needed the members of the weaving cooperative to be able to read and write so they could do the data collection and noting so that the weaving cooperative could be independent without relying on outside sources. But also we need the confidence, the people have to have the confidence in their own abilities and the confidence to try new things. And really that you need a quality education for that. And the Guatemala school system tends to crush initiative and creativity. For example, the story of the little boy whose teacher said, draw a flower, and he drew a flower and colored it orange. And she said, that's wrong, it has to be yellow. So he had to draw it over again. Some years later, that little boy was in another class. Another teacher said, draw a flower, any color that you want. But he had learned his lesson well, and he drew a yellow flower. So when we offer trainings to the women, they listen, but they're reluctant sometimes to take the responsibility, I think from a fear or they're timid or lack of confidence. So a quality education would really help them develop that confidence that they would be willing to take on unfamiliar responsibilities and they would be willing to take the initiative to solve problems. And I'll tell you next week when we talk about where we are now, you'll hear that they actually have gotten that confidence. I don't want you to go away discouraged. So you heard about Gladys, our bookkeeper, who came into the group already with education in order to do her job. So little by little, as women entered the cooperative with some education, they were able to take on responsibilities that we call coordinators. And that is what was the beginning of me being able to divest my responsibilities to them. So Maria was, who you see in this picture, was one of the people who came in. She entered the cooperative as a backstrap weaver, but she had already completed her secondary education. So we made her the coordinator of marketing and sales. And she was definitely reluctant to take the responsibility at the time. And what she had to do in the beginning was receive visitors who came to our workshop. And we have a lot of US visitors, so they always like to shop. So she would host those. And then if we had somebody, a Guatemalan store owner come, she would also show that person around and sell them or arrange to make sales. So, but she really did seem a little reluctant to be doing all of this. And then one day, Eduardo and I took her to Guatemala City with us because we wanted to introduce her to a store in Guatemala City that bought from us so she would be able to take over the relationship. And she confided to us on the way she had never been farther away from Cajola than Quetzaltenango, which is only 5 miles away from Cajola. So that was an adventure for her. A few years later, she competed in Cajola for the annual competition of the Daughter of Cajola. This is a competition held all over the country in indigenous communities, and the winners are selected based on their ability to speak. And so she won the competition for speaking about the Mayan culture. So then all the winners of all those different communities go into the town of Coban, and they compete to be the daughter of the king. And that also is a competition based on the young women's ability to speak about culture. And during that experience, they have a chance to meet with other women from all over the country. They learn a lot about their culture, and they do some parading in their traditional clothing, and they bring along the accessories that represent their community. So here Maria is showing us the pottery that they would use in Cajola. She's wearing the rebozo, which is the red and white striped fabric that is a tradition for Cajola and is used as a shawl or used to carry a baby. And she's also carrying a servilleta, a woven square that's used for tortillas or bread. And in this case, she's wearing it that's been woven with natural cotton, because some of the traditional weavers in Cajola or at the coast still grow the natural original cotton of Cajola. So she's representing tradition. After the competition, during the following year, they all go all over the country in different places talking about cultural and doing cultural activities. When Maria returned to us full time, this was a person with great self-confidence, and she has really blossomed into being a strong leader of the cooperative. And we had another woman, who I don't have her picture here, who entered the cooperative, whose name was Caryn. Caryn was studying in college when she entered the co-op. This happens frequently, that we have weavers that are trying to earn the money to get themselves through school. So, and Caryn was studying to be a teacher. And because of her college education, I asked her if she would be interested in learning a very complicated weave that required 16 harnesses. Remember, we have 2 or 4 harnesses on our looms. And this complicated weave required you to look at a diagram and then interpret that diagram with your yarn. And I had tried a training with all the rest of the footloom weavers, but they really weren't able to pick up this. So I asked her if she'd be interested, and she was. And so she made some of these beautiful things with this. It's a footloom version of a traditional backstrap technique. Also, because of her education, I asked her if she would be willing or interested in becoming the production coordinator. So this was a very important job, and another one that was resting on my shoulders. And so I was happy to find somebody who agreed that she would take it. So now we had another coordinator. So now we have our, if you remember, a quality control coordinator, we have the production coordinator, and a marketing and sales coordinator. So she started to take on that responsibility. And then a few months later, she was offered a full-time job teaching at one of the 2 middle schools in Cajola. So, although I was disappointed in one way because she had just started being the production coordinator, we're of course really happy with her that she was able to find full-time employment in the career of her choice. And the good thing was, now we had an empty slot. And so we just had to fill it with somebody else to be a production coordinator. And then Celia was a woman who entered the cooperative to be a seamstress. And she had married when she was not finished with middle school, raised 4 children, sent all 4 of them to college. And then she decided she wanted to go back to school. So she used the scholarship program in order to finish her middle school. And then she said, hey, I'd like to study fashion design at the Technical Institute. So she got a scholarship to study at the fashion design she got her scholarship to study at the fashion design. Well, as she's working along in her studies, getting to the end of them, one day she came to me and she said, you know, that chalk that you brought us from the States in order to mark our fabric, well, my teacher said that's really not the right kind of chalk we should be using. And I was like, well, that's cool. It's okay with me. You know, I'm doing everything the best I can. So if there's another kind of chalk, that's great. And then she started to share other materials that we could do that would be better. That's great. And then she had some ideas about what they could do on the sewing machine a little bit differently. So I went to what I'm going to talk about next, the Sales and Marketing Council, and I said to them, hey, Celia's telling me all these cool things about that. What do you think if we make her the new product development coordinator? And they said, sure. So she agreed. And I was really happy because now I have one person that is a point person for me. When I come with something that a new product that we want developed, there's the person who's going to figure out how to do it. And better than that, I don't have to try to explain how to do it, and I'm not even a seamstress. But she knew ways to say, oh, if you did it this way, it would be better. If you did this, this would be stronger. Or why not do it this way? And so we ended up with better products coming out of her. And she really had the confidence to tell me all those things. What's the matter? All right, well, you just have to imagine. I can't turn it. Oh, thank you. So now we have a production coordinator, we have a sales and marketing coordinator, we have a quality control coordinator, we have a sales and marketing, what did I forget? New product development coordinator. So in January of 2018, I said, okay, we're going to make a sales and marketing council. And so we had a meeting with the coordinators plus representatives of the weavers, the footloom weavers, the backstrap weavers, and the seamstresses. And they're all sitting around the table like, okay, what's this? So I said, look, I'm busy trying to develop the US market. You are going to develop the Guatemala market. And I gave them I shared some ideas about how to do new product development, how to do pricing, how to do costing, and then I left. When I came back the next month, I was so impressed because they had really taken that whole idea and really run with it. And they were also taking on the responsibility of managing interpersonal relations in the cooperative. And that was really something. So next week, I'm going to tell you how that all blossomed into how I'm going to extricate myself from the business. And I gave you time for 5 minutes of questions before you leave. Any questions? Yeah.
From a standpoint of curriculum, the education, is it similar to that what you see in the U.S. or is it do they focus on sort of
In Reggio Emilia, or the curriculum for Guatemala?
for Guatemala?
I guess so if you read the curriculum, the required government curriculum that they publish, you would say it's totally the same. The problem is in the execution.
Right.
So the idea is okay. It's the execution that's bad.
want to say that that's very impressive how we went from college graduates to 24.
Oh, in the scholarship program, yeah.
And, you know, and that's amazing. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
Really making change. So,
They are making a change, yes.
yeah,
Slowly but surely,
yes.
step by step. That's our motto. We make haste slowly, step by step. Yeah, it is. When you look at it, I think it's cool. So,
It was interesting though, when they decided to only take women into the cooperative who have a sixth grade education. Because they didn't. I understand
Well,
the
because-
reasoning behind it,
right.
but you know, you're not, maybe not giving other people a chance. But I understand why you
Right.
want that.
Well, they did. So that's why we didn't have classes anymore. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're off to the alumni now.
What's that? You want, yes, no.
I'll collect them after.
Thank you.
Oh, stop the recording.